Hello again, everyone. I'm Bob Kolt, and we're continuing our conversations in the Lansing School District. State Representative Andy Schor is with me today. Andy, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
I want you to download a little bit with all your knowledge about some legislation that occurred late that really prohibits school districts from communicating about a bond issue. And we've got a big bond vote coming up in May. And I'm aware of your position, but I wondered if you could talk a little bit about what happened and maybe where things go from here.
I'm happy to, Bob. I appreciate you asking. It's an important issue for all your viewers, for really all the citizens of Lansing. I, as a parent and as a legislator, am very upset. What happened was we had a very non-controversial bill. It dealt with checkoffs for PACs. It was nothing. Everybody supported it going through the Senate. It came to the House. Everyone supported it in committee. It came to the floor, and I mean, literally at 10 o'clock at night, we got the bill was originally about 12 pages, and we got a 40-page substitute with a whole bunch of new things that we had never seen. And about 15 minutes later, it was put up for a vote. We didn't have a chance to read it, to know what was in it. So when I say we, I mean the Democrats. This was put up by the Republican majority.
Yeah.
And the Democrats received this, and not to make it partisan, but this is how it was. So the Democrats voted no, and a few of the Republicans voted no, but most of the Republicans voted yes, and it passed. So we found out very shortly after, a day or two after, as we actually were able to analyze and read through the bill, we found out there was a provision put in there that said that schools and cities and really any unit of government cannot send out information to their citizens, voters, within 60 days of a ballot initiative. And this is crazy. Here in Lansing, we've had several ballot initiatives. We had the school district had a non-homestead millage, right. Which, as I talked to people, they didn't know what non-homestead meant, but the school district was effectively able to communicate that through newsletters, through TV and radio and other things. And it's not advocating. The school district didn't say, vote for this, don't vote for this. They said, this is what it is. The library did the same thing, CATA. It's informative. It's telling our voters, here's the information, now you get a chance to decide. So what the Republican majority in this substitute did was they said, we're not gonna let those schools and others tell their voters what this is. We think they're advocating. And it's crazy because they made that claim, and there have been something like 5 instances where someone has been found to be advocating over the last many, many years. We've got thousands of local governments. Yeah. So it's a ridiculous claim. So where do we go from here? Lansing, and I penned a letter to the governor after the bill passed, basically saying, Lansing schools, which I am a resident and parent with 2 kids in the school district, very personal to him, I said, Lansing has a ballot initiative coming up in May. And without being able to tell the voters what they are considering, that can be a big problem here in Lansing because, the idea of this, not just the millage, but the whole plan is transformative. It's, taking a school district with a few priority schools and other things, and it's coming back and really could be a shot in the arm. And that could be boosted by a millage, may not be, depends on what happens on the ballot, but not telling the voters what it is they're voting on could be drastically bad for Lansing. And I put all that in the letter. I made it very personal. I didn't publicize it. I just sent it to him. I wanted him to know, and I know he got it. And I was disappointed that he still signed the bill, but he did call for changes to this law.
Well, and that's the problematic thing that I think people are trying to process, that the governor actually signed the bill with that provision in it. Was there any explanation or any?
There really wasn't. He signed the bill, and in his letter accompanying his signature, he said, I understand there are problems with this provision, and the legislature should clean it up. So, I don't know why he signed it. There were other provisions in the bill that I also didn't agree with, and it's possible that he had been convinced that those provisions are more important and it needed to be signed. He didn't tell me. He didn't tell me why he signed it, but he did. But he did say that this provision needs to be cleaned up. So now we've got several bills in the House of Representatives that could clean it up. I introduced a bill that would just remove the language. It would take it all out. The chair of the committee on the Republican side, she introduced a bill that is supposed to technically clean it up, although it doesn't really do much. It allows you as a school district to be able to send out only the actual 100 words on the ballot to people. And anybody who's watching this, or you or I, we all know that that's very legalese. You know, shall the Ingham County have 1/100th of a millage? You know, it's very legal terms. So that really doesn't tell the voters. We need to be able to inform them what's on the ballot. And because we have Republicans and Democrats who are very upset about this provision. The Republicans didn't know it was in there when the bill passed. A Republican senator introduced a repeal of the language. So I'm working with colleagues on both sides of the aisle to try and get this fixed. And of course, my biggest incentive is to get it fixed in time to ensure the voters have the information for the May election.
Yeah, the May election in Lansing. I think the troubling thing is not just informing voters, but the inability to even answer questions could be suspect. And that's a difficult thing to process.
It is, and there were questions about the language when we first saw it. Some of it is mass communication, some of it, what qualifies as mass communication. So it was. Some people were calling it a gag order. Some people called it a blackout. No matter what you want to call it, it was unnecessary. I mean, regardless, it was unnecessary. I think there were certain interest groups who prefer to see millages go down, who don't want the voters informed. The ironic part is we passed that right after we passed the elimination of straight ticket voting, where they said people should know who the candidates are they're voting for. They should be informed, and then immediately the next vote, they said, but you shouldn't be informed about the millage you're going to vote on.
Well, you have a challenge trying to explain everything that goes on at the Capitol.
It's tough.
That is difficult. So you're a parent in Lansing School District. Your kids go to schools here, and tell us what your thoughts are about the bond proposal, because even while the school district may not be able to advocate, at least our state representative should be able to.
Sure, I will. I will be talking to anyone and everyone. I've got the poster that the school district put out on what the plan would do. I mean, it's not just the bond; it's the entire plan. Yeah. Changing schools to have certain focuses. I've got one of my children in the STEAM school and one in the Chinese school, and both of them I think are excelling because of these programs. I think the plan, I call it transformative, because it really will be able to educate these children in a way that we haven't seen before, with specialties in different schools. Should the bond pass, you'd have updated schools with technology that we see. If you go down to Holt and you see big flat screens on the walls in every school, but in Lansing we've got older buildings.
Yeah.
So now we will be able to update those buildings. We will be able to take Pattengill and make it into a new Eastern high school, and it's our newest building. So our kids would really, the learning capacity and the atmosphere in one of those buildings would be so different than being in a school where the furnace is failing or the roof is has problems. So just the ability to update our schools into the 21st century, the technology, and the focus. All of it is, for me, it's very exciting. And I will be talking about this, I assume, with voters as we come up to May.
Yeah, I think the difficult thing to get through to the public when you talk about a bond issue is that there really is, in this case, because of expiring bonds, no real increase in the amount the taxpayers would pay. So for a dime a day, for what they would pay in taxes, they'll have a completely renovated school system, not just a school or a new school one place, but a whole school system with a path for their children. So that must be a challenge that we're all going to have to try to communicate.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right with we passed a sinking fund not too long ago, and we're taking existing millages, in essence, we're going to use them for all of these things that I've been talking about. So it's not, this is not a heavy lift, this is not a big ask, but again, people may not know that. So you have to inform them. And if they hear all that and they choose to vote no, then that's their choice. Lansing residents have been very supportive of Lansing schools with their tax dollars and with their pocketbook, and they did support the sinking fund, as did I, a few years ago now. And I think that's an important piece of this, that people wouldn't otherwise know, that you have a millage expiring. We're going to take those dollars, with a slight increase, and create this unbelievable new system here in Lansing.
Yeah. You know, we talked to Chris Swope earlier, the city clerk, and he predicted that there would be a small turnout in the May election, maybe 8,000 to 12,000 people, and almost half of those might be absentee voters. That's a huge amount to really focus on. And you've run some campaigns. You really got to get out and target senior citizens who would vote absentee and others, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, in a May election, you are going to have a smaller universe of people who come out and vote for whatever reason. So yeah, you have to let those who vote absentee, whether they're seniors, whether they are out of the district. You know, there are the 5 acceptable reasons for absentee. You have to provide them with the information, and that's, you know, for me, in my opinion, you know, it's the schools providing them information about the ballot. It's the advocates for providing the, you know, vote for, or the advocates against, you know, providing the vote against, and then letting those citizens either come to the ballot, come to the polls and vote, or vote by mail within that 2-week or 3-week window. But they need to have the information. When I've run campaigns. When I ran for office, and I've run for several, when I was a county commissioner for 10 years before the state house, I would send information out. You know, you make sure you know who the absentee voters are, and you get them the information, and then you let them decide. Yeah.
So you're a parent in the school district. How are you feeling about your kids' education? I hear some positive things.
I'm very happy. I'm very happy. We finally got the MSTEP results. You know, it's not the school's fault. It was the state's fault that the MSTEP results were delayed. But I got the MSTEP results.
And that's difficult for people to understand too, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. We had I was just talking with one of the school board members, and I asked the chairwoman of the education committee to bring in the department, and I was pretty aggressive with the department. Why are we getting these MSTEP results halfway into the school year?
Yeah.
You know, I've already had conferences with both my kids' teachers, and I know where they're at. So what do these results do for me? So we're pushing to make sure those results next year are going to be before the school year starts. But in seeing those results for me, you know, I'm very happy with my children's progress. I love my children's teachers. They're both great. They're wonderful. I can't say enough about the Lansing schools teachers.
Well, you could even say their names. They would probably like the plug.
It is. It's Ms. Lopez and then Ms. Rademacher. Both of them, for my son and my daughter, they're tremendous, and my kids are doing so well. And I really can't say enough about the Lansing teachers here. They love teaching the kids here. They love seeing improvements. And I'm seeing improvements in my children. You know, whenever I go to parent-teacher conferences or any of the many Lansing events, you know, I have teachers who come up to me and talk to me, and it's really a wonderful environment.
Well, under the Capitol Dome, what other things are legislators talking about in the educational field that would affect the Lansing School District? We always think about per pupil funding and whether or not that needs to be reviewed, but that or other things, what's on the agenda?
Well, per pupil funding, the funding will start to be on the agenda in a week or two. The governor will present his budget, and we'll see what recommendations he has. A big piece of the educational pie right now is going to be the Detroit Public Schools. They've got some severe problems there, but we're being asked to support, you know, a lot of money going down there, which in essence could equate to a $50 per pupil cut everywhere else. So one of the things that I have been very aggressive on is I want to help those kids in Detroit who very much need it. They've got, you know, buildings with black mold and rats in a really bad situation. I want to help them, but I also want to help other school districts that have priority schools. So, you know, in Lansing, we've taken some pretty extreme measures to ensure that we are on good, solid financial ground. And you know, I wouldn't mind trying to help out teachers with a little more planning time, and you know, bringing back, you know, some of the art and music and PE teachers. Now, our teachers right now are doing a great job. Yeah. The classroom teachers are doing a great job, but we've taken some steps. We've had to close a few schools in the last few years. Yeah. So I would like to help Detroit, but I'd also like to help Lansing and Muskegon Heights and a few other school districts. And funding is going to be a big piece of what we talk about moving forward.
Well, as a state representative here in Lansing, when you look at the Lansing School District that has a very conservative budget and a budget surplus and gets good audit reviews, and that's a completely different situation than Detroit. We're not talking about Lansing as a school district in bad shape, but Detroit really has problems, and we do have to help them in a way, don't we?
Yeah, and don't let me think that these are comparable, because they're not. Detroit is under emergency management. Lansing, we have the superintendent of the year. We have a fantastic school board. So no, I don't want to compare the two. My point really was more that we need to make sure that most of our urban communities are taken care of, but we need to give a lot of help to Detroit. There's a lot of kids there that are struggling through no fault of their own, and that's a concern. So that will be on the agenda. We'll be talking a lot about lead and lead testing due to the Flint situation in the water, and I think that is going to transform and go into other communities. What's the lead like in Lansing? Where the pipes like? Are there tests being done in schools? I think that will be a conversation. Lead paint. We'll have a lot of talk about how lead affects how children learn. We'll have a few other issues that come up. Again, we'll be talking with the Department of Education quite a bit. We're talking about professional development for teachers and how we can ensure they have the appropriate professional development. That's been the conversation in the Education Committee for the last 2 weeks. So we have a lot of issues on the table that we're going to be talking about. And I always try and talk to the school district here, to either Yvonne or to any of the school board members, to Peter and the rest of the school board. They're very, very helpful in what I bring to the Education Committee at the state level. And I look forward to that partnership moving forward.
Well, State Representative Andy Schor, we appreciate you joining us here today. And I'm Bob Kolt. We'll continue our conversations in the Lansing School District. All right, we kept you on time.
Great, thank you.
Hey, and we're doing the water testing.
Oh, I'm sure.
We're going to do, she started, Yvonne really moved toward, they started over the weekend, and most everything is looking real